Hey there, and welcome back to Book Demystified. I'm so pumped to be here with you today because we're about to dive into something that's going to completely flip your relationship with money upside down in the best possible way. Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Sunday night, staring at a pile of bills that just keep growing. Your phone buzzes with another overdraft notification from your bank, and you realize you've got exactly 4 days until payday and about $12 to your name. You look around at your friends on social media, posting about their vacation photos and new car purchases, and you can't help but wonder, what am I doing wrong? How are they affording all this stuff while I'm over here eating ramen for the third time this week? Well, here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. There's this couple that David Bach writes about in The Automatic Millionaire named Jim and Sue McIntyre. They were both working regular jobs, making average salaries, never earned more than $55,000 a year between them, and yet they were retired as millionaires. Not because they won the lottery, not because they inherited money, not because they started some crazy successful business. They became millionaires because they made one simple decision early in their lives and then forgot about it. Today we're breaking down The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, and I'm telling you right now, this book is going to change how you think about building wealth forever. Bach discovered that the people who build real, lasting wealth aren't the ones making six-figure salaries or constantly obsessing over their investment portfolios. They're the people who figured out how to make wealth building completely automatic. They set up systems that work in the background of their lives, building wealth while they sleep, while they're at work, while they're binge-watching Netflix on a Friday night. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about how you can become an automatic millionaire starting today, even if you're living paycheck to paycheck right now. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why willpower and budgeting have been failing you, and you're going to learn a system that actually works. David Bach wasn't always a financial expert. He started out as a guy who was terrible with money, just like most of us. He was spending everything he earned, living paycheck to paycheck, and couldn't figure out why he never seemed to get ahead financially. But then something happened that changed his entire perspective on money and wealth building. He was working as a financial advisor when he met Jim and Sue McIntyre, a couple in their mid-50s who came to him for retirement planning. When Bach looked at their financial situation, he was shocked. Here were two people who had worked regular jobs their entire lives, never made what most people would consider big money, and yet they had accumulated over $2 million in assets. Bach's first thought was that they must have inherited money or had some kind of windfall, but as he dug deeper into their story, he realized something that completely changed his understanding of how wealth is actually built. Jim and Sue had never won the lottery, never received an inheritance, never started some crazy successful business. They had simply made one decision early in their marriage and then automated that decision so they never had to think about it again. What was that decision? They decided to pay themselves first, automatically, before they paid anyone else. And here's the kicker. They only started with $50 a month. $50! That's less than what most people spend on their phone bill. But because they automated this process and never touched the money, compound interest worked its magic over 30 years, and they became millionaires. Bach realized that Jim and Sue weren't unique. As he started looking at other wealthy clients, he found the same pattern over and over again. The people who built real wealth weren't necessarily the highest earners or the most disciplined budgeters. They're the people who automated their wealth building process so that it happened without them having to think about it. This discovery led Bach to develop what he calls the Automatic Millionaire system, and it's based on one simple principle that goes against everything most financial experts teach. Bach says that budgeting doesn't work for most people, and willpower is a terrible strategy for building wealth. Instead, he advocates for making wealth building completely automatic, so that you never have to rely on discipline or motivation to get rich. Now, I know what you're thinking. If building wealth is so simple, why isn't everyone doing it? And that's exactly the right question to ask. The answer is that most people are taught to approach money in a way that's almost guaranteed to fail. We're told to budget, to track every expense, to constantly monitor our spending, to rely on willpower to save money. But here's what Bach discovered. The human brain isn't wired to be good at this kind of long-term thinking. We're designed to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term benefits. That's why diets fail. That's why gym memberships go unused. And that's why most people never build wealth even when they have good intentions. Bach tells this story about a woman who came to one of his seminars. She'd been trying to save money for years. She'd make a budget, stick to it for a few weeks, then something would come up. A car repair, a friend's wedding, a sale at her favorite store, and she'd blow her budget. Then she'd feel guilty, give up on saving for a while, and eventually try to start over again. It was a cycle that repeated itself over and over again. This woman's story is incredibly common. Most people approach saving money like they approach dieting. They rely on willpower and discipline, and when they inevitably slip up, they feel like failures and give up entirely. But Bach realized that this approach is fundamentally flawed because it requires you to constantly make the right decision, and humans just aren't good at that. Instead, Bach advocates for what he calls the set and forget approach to wealth building. The idea is to set up systems that automatically move money from your checking account to your savings and investment accounts before you even see it. This way, you never have to rely on willpower or discipline to save money because the decision is made for you automatically. The foundation of Bach's system is what he calls paying yourself first. This isn't a new concept, but Bach approaches it in a way that's incredibly practical and actionable. He says that most people approach their finances backwards. They get paid, they pay all their bills, they spend money on food and entertainment and shopping, and then if there's anything left over, they save it. But here's the problem with this approach. There's never anything left over. No matter how much money you make, your expenses will always expand to consume all of your income. Bach calls this Parkinson's law of money. And it's the reason why people who make $100,000 a year often have just as much trouble saving money as people who make $40,000 a year.
So instead of trying to save what's left over, Bach advocates for automatically saving a percentage of your income before you pay any bills or spend any money. This way, saving becomes a non-negotiable part of your financial routine, just like paying rent or buying groceries. But Bach doesn't just tell you to pay yourself first and leave it at that. He gives you specific percentages and shows you exactly how to set up the automation. He recommends starting with what he calls the 1-hour formula. The idea is that you should automatically save 1 hour's worth of income every day. Let me break this down for you. If you make $15 an hour, you should automatically save $15 a day. If you make $20 an hour, you should save $20 a day. This works out to about 12.5% of your gross income, which Bach says is the minimum amount you need to save to become wealthy over time. Now, I know some of you are thinking, there's no way I can save that much money. And Bach addresses this concern head-on. He says that most people think they can't afford to save money because they're looking at their current spending and trying to figure out what they can cut. But the beauty of paying yourself first is that you never see the money, so you automatically adjust your spending to live on what's left. Bach shares a story about a couple who thought they couldn't afford to save any money. They were living paycheck to paycheck and felt like they were already cutting corners wherever they could. But Bach convinced them to try the automatic savings approach for just 3 months. They set up an automatic transfer of $200 a month from their checking account to a savings account. The first month was a little tight, but they managed. The second month was easier. By the third month, they had completely adjusted their spending and didn't even notice the money was gone. They were amazed to realize that they had been wasting $200 a month on things they didn't really need or want, and they hadn't even realized it. This is what Bach calls forced savings, and it's incredibly powerful because it removes the decision-making from the equation. When you automate your savings, you're not constantly having to decide whether to save money or spend it. The decision is made for you automatically, and you learn to live on what's left. But Bach doesn't stop at just saving money. He shows you how to automate your entire financial life so that you're not only saving money, but also building wealth, paying off debt, and securing your retirement without having to think about it constantly. The next piece of Bach's system is what he calls automatic debt elimination. Instead of trying to budget your way out of debt, Bach advocates for automating extra payments on your debts so that they get paid off faster without you having to think about it. Here's how it works. Let's say you have a credit card with a minimum payment of $50 a month. Instead of just paying the minimum, you set up an automatic payment of $75 a month. That extra $25 might not seem like much, but it can cut years off your payoff time and save you thousands in interest over the life of your debt. Bach tells the story of a man who had $15,000 in credit card debt. He was making minimum payments and feeling like he'd never get out of debt. But when he automated an extra $50 a month toward his credit card payment, he paid off the debt in less than 3 years, instead of the 30+ years it would have taken with minimum payments. The key insight here is that most people underestimate how much impact small amounts can have over time. An extra $25 a month might not feel significant, but when you automate it, you never miss it, and it can save you thousands of dollars in interest over the life of your debt. Hey, if you're enjoying our free book summaries and want to support what we do, there are a few easy ways to help. You can subscribe to the channel, become a member, or grab the book using our affiliate link in the description. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can also leave a tip via PayPal or UPI. The link's below. Every bit of support helps us keep creating valuable content for you. Now, let's get back to it. Bach also introduces what he calls the Automatic Millionaire investment system, and this is where things get really exciting. He shows you how to automatically invest money in a way that builds wealth over time without requiring you to become a stock market expert or constantly monitor your investments. The foundation of Bach's investment strategy is what he calls dollar cost averaging. This means investing a fixed amount of money at regular intervals, regardless of what's happening in the market. For example, you might automatically invest $200 every month into a mutual fund or index fund. The beauty of this approach is that it removes emotion from investing. When the market is up, you buy fewer shares with your $200. When the market is down, you buy more shares with the same $200. Over time, this averages out to a good price, and you benefit from the long-term growth of the market without having to time your investments. Bach shares a powerful example of this. He talks about two investors, Sarah and Jessica. Sarah tries to time the market, investing large amounts when she thinks the market is low and holding back when she thinks it's high. Jessica invests $200 every month regardless of market conditions. Over a 20-year period, Jessica's consistent investing approach significantly outperformed Sarah's attempts to time the market, even though Sarah was arguably more sophisticated about investing. This is one of the most important lessons in Bach's book. Consistency beats sophistication when it comes to building wealth. You don't need to be a financial genius or spend hours researching investments. You just need to consistently invest money over time and let compound interest work its magic. Bach also addresses one of the biggest obstacles to building wealth, the complexity of investment options. He says that most people get paralyzed by choice when it comes to investing because there are so many options and so much conflicting advice. His solution is refreshingly simple. He advocates for what he calls lifestyle funds or target date funds. These are mutual funds that automatically adjust their investment mix based on your age and retirement timeline. When you're young, they invest more aggressively for growth. As you get closer to retirement, they automatically shift to more conservative investments. The beauty of these funds is that they do all the thinking for you. You don't have to decide how much to invest in stocks versus bonds, you don't have to rebalance your portfolio, and you don't have to constantly monitor your investments. The fund managers do all that automatically based on proven investment principles. Bach tells the story of a teacher named Maria who was overwhelmed by her retirement plan options. Her school district offered dozens of different mutual funds, and she had no idea which ones to choose. She ended up not investing at all because she was afraid of making the wrong choice.
When Bach introduced her to target date funds, everything changed. She chose a fund with a target date close to when she planned to retire, set up automatic contributions from her paycheck, and forgot about it. 20 years later, she had accumulated over $400,000 for retirement, all because she simplified her investment process and automated it. This is what Bach calls investment automation, and it's a game changer for people who want to build wealth without becoming investment experts. You make one decision about which fund to invest in, set up automatic contributions, and let time and compound interest do the rest. But Bach doesn't stop there. He also shows you how to automate what he calls dream building. This is the process of automatically saving money for specific goals, like buying a house, taking a vacation, or starting a business. The key insight here is that most people fail to achieve their financial goals because they try to save for them manually. They tell themselves they'll put aside money for a vacation or a house down payment, but then life gets in the way and they never actually do it. Bach's solution is to set up separate automatic savings accounts for each of your major goals. For example, you might have one account that automatically saves $50 a month for a vacation, another that saves $100 a month for a house down payment, and another that saves $25 a month for a new car. The beauty of this approach is that you're making progress toward multiple goals simultaneously without having to think about it. Bach shares the story of a couple who wanted to take a European vacation but could never seem to save enough money. They set up an automatic transfer of $75 a month to a vacation savings account. 18 months later, they had saved enough for their dream trip, and they barely noticed the money coming out of their account. This is what Bach calls automatic dream funding, and it's incredibly powerful because it turns your goals from wishes into reality. When you automate the savings process, you're guaranteed to make progress toward your goals, even if you're not actively thinking about them. Bach also addresses one of the most common concerns about automation. What if I need the money? He acknowledges that life is unpredictable and that there will be times when you need to access your savings, but he argues that having automated savings actually gives you more flexibility, not less. When you have money automatically flowing into various savings accounts, you have options when unexpected expenses arise. Instead of going into debt or scrambling to find money, you can temporarily reduce your automatic savings or use money from one of your goal-specific accounts. Bach tells the story of a man who lost his job unexpectedly. Because he had been automatically saving money for several years, he had enough in his emergency fund to cover his expenses for 6 months while he looked for a new job. Without the automatic savings system, he would have had to rely on credit cards or loans, which would have made his situation much more stressful. This is what Bach calls automatic security, and it's one of the most important benefits of the Automatic Millionaire system. When you automate your savings, you're not just building wealth, you're also building a safety net that protects you from life's unexpected challenges. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful aspects of Bach's system, the concept of found money. Bach argues that most people have more money available for saving than they realize, but it's hidden in small daily expenses that they don't think about. He introduces what he calls the Latte Factor, which is the idea that small daily purchases can add up to significant amounts over time. For example, if you spend $5 a day on coffee, that's $35 a week, $150 a month, and $1,800 a year. If you invested that $1,800 annually and earned an 8% return, you'd have over $200,000 after 30 years. Now, Bach isn't telling you to give up coffee or live like a monk. He's simply pointing out that when you become aware of where your money is going, you can make conscious choices about what's really important to you. Maybe that daily coffee is worth it to you, and that's fine. But maybe you realize you're spending money on things you don't really value, and you can redirect that money toward building wealth. Bach shares the story of a woman who tracked her spending for a week and realized she was spending over $60 a week on lunch. She didn't enjoy the food that much, and she was just buying lunch out of convenience. When she started packing lunch from home 3 days a week, she was able to save over $100 a month, which she automated into her investment account. The beauty of this approach is that you're making progress toward multiple goals simultaneously without having to think about it. Bach also addresses the most common concerns about automation. What if I need the money? He acknowledges that life is unpredictable and that there will be times when you need to access your savings. But he argues that having automated savings actually gives you more flexibility, not less. When you have money automatically flowing into various savings accounts, you have options when unexpected expenses arise. Instead of going into debt or scrambling to find money, you can temporarily reduce your automatic savings or use money from one of your goal-specific accounts. Bach tells the story of a man who lost his job unexpectedly. Because he had been automatically saving money for several years, he had enough in his emergency fund to cover his expenses for 6 months while he looked for a new job. Without the automatic saving system, he would have had to rely on credit cards or loans, which would have made his situation much more stressful. This is what Bach calls automatic security, and it's one of the most important benefits of the Automatic Millionaire system. When you automate your savings, you're not just building wealth, you're also building a safety net that protects you from life's unexpected challenges. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful aspects of Bach's system, the concept of found money. Bach argues that most people have more money available for saving than they realize, but it's hidden in small daily expenses that they don't think about. He introduces what he calls the Latte Factor, which is the idea that small daily purchases can add up to significant amounts over time. For example, if you spend $5 a day on coffee, that's $35 a week, $150 a month, and $1,800 a year. If you invested that $1,800 annually and earned an 8% return, you'd have over $200,000 after 30 years. Now, Bach isn't telling you to give up coffee or live like a monk. He's simply pointing out that when you become aware of where your money is going, you can make conscious choices about what's really important to you. Maybe that daily coffee is worth it to you, and that's fine. But maybe you realize you're spending money on things you don't really value, and you can redirect that money toward building wealth. Bach shares the story of a woman who tracked her spending for a week and realized she was spending over $60 a week on lunch. She didn't enjoy the food that much, and she was just buying lunch out of convenience. When she started packing lunch from home 3 days a week, she was able to save over $100 a month, which she automated into her investment account. The beauty of this approach is that you're making progress toward multiple goals simultaneously without having to think about it. Bach also addresses the psychological aspects of money management. He talks about how most people have a complicated relationship with money that stems from their childhood experiences and societal messages. Some people feel guilty about wanting to be wealthy. Others feel like they don't deserve financial success, and many people have limiting beliefs about money that prevent them from taking action. Bach's solution is to focus on the purpose behind building wealth rather than just the money itself. He encourages readers to think about what financial security would mean for their lives. Would it mean less stress, more time with family, the ability to pursue passions, the freedom to help others? When you connect wealth building to your deeper values and goals, it becomes much easier to stay motivated and consistent. Bach shares the story of a single mother who was struggling to save money until she reframed her goal. Instead of thinking about saving for retirement, she started thinking about building financial security so I can be there for my kids. This shift in perspective made all the difference in her ability to stick with her automatic savings plan. Bach also talks about the importance of starting now, regardless of your current financial situation. He says that one of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting until they're making more money or have their finances figured out before they start building wealth. The truth is, there will never be a perfect time to start, and waiting will cost you significantly due to the power of compound interest. Bach shows that someone who starts investing $100 a month at age 25 will have more money at retirement than someone who starts investing $200 a month at age 35, simply because of the extra 10 years of compound growth.
He tells the story of a college student who started investing just $25 a month from his part-time job. His friends thought he was crazy to invest such a small amount, but by the time he graduated and started his career, he had several $1,000s invested and had developed the habit of automatic investing. Because he started early and increased his contributions as his income grew, he was on track to become a millionaire by age 50. This is what Bach calls the power of starting early, and it's one of the most important lessons in his book. Even if you can only invest a small amount, starting now is more powerful than waiting until you can invest a larger amount later. Bach also addresses the common concern about market volatility and economic uncertainty. He acknowledges that the stock market goes up and down and that there will be periods when your investments lose value. But he argues that trying to time the market or avoid volatility is a mistake that will cost you money in the long run. Instead, Bach advocates for what he calls staying the course. When you invest consistently over time, market volatility actually works in your favor. During market downturns, your automatic investments buy more shares at lower prices. When the market recovers, those additional shares become more valuable. Bach shares the example of someone who invested consistently through the 2008 financial crisis. While many people panicked and sold their investments, this person continued with their automatic investment plan. The extra shares they bought during the market downturn significantly boosted their returns when the market recovered. This is what Bach calls automatic discipline, and it's one of the biggest advantages of the Automatic Millionaire system. When your investments are automated, you're not tempted to make emotional decisions based on market movements. You stay invested through good times and bad, which historically has been the most successful investment strategy. As we move toward the end of our journey through Bach's wisdom, it's important to understand that the Automatic Millionaire system isn't just about money. It's about creating a life where money works for you instead of against you. When you automate your finances, you free up mental energy to focus on the things that really matter to you. Bach talks about how automating his finances changed his relationship with money. Instead of constantly worrying about bills and spending, he was able to focus on his career, his relationships, and his personal growth. The automatic systems handled the money management in the background while he lived his life. This is what Bach calls financial freedom, and it's available to anyone willing to set up the systems and trust the process. You don't need to be a financial expert. You don't need to constantly monitor your investments, and you don't need to make huge sacrifices. You just need to automate the right processes and let time work its magic. Bach also emphasizes the importance of reviewing and adjusting your automatic systems periodically. He recommends checking in on your finances quarterly to make sure everything is working as intended and to make adjustments as your life circumstances change. For example, if you get a raise, you might increase your automatic savings amount. If you pay off a debt, you might redirect that payment toward investments. If you achieve one of your savings goals, you might set up a new automatic savings account for a different goal. The key is to make these adjustments gradually and systematically rather than constantly tinkering with your finances. Bach says that the Automatic Millionaire system works best when you set it up once and then largely forget about it, making minor adjustments as needed. So here's what I want you to take away from this incredible book. First, budgeting and willpower are not effective strategies for building wealth. Instead of trying to constantly make the right financial decisions, set up systems that make the right decisions automatically. Second, pay yourself first by automatically saving a percentage of your income before you pay any bills or spend any money. Start with whatever amount you can afford, even if it's just $25 a month. The key is to start now and automate the process. Third, use the power of dollar-cost averaging to invest consistently over time. Don't try to time the market or pick individual stocks. Instead, invest a fixed amount regularly in diversified mutual funds or index funds and let compound interest work its magic. Fourth, automate your debt elimination by setting up automatic payments that are higher than the minimum required. This will save you thousands in interest and help you become debt-free faster. Fifth, set up automatic savings accounts for your specific goals, whether that's a vacation, a house down payment, or starting a business. When you automate the savings process, you're guaranteed to make progress toward your goals. Sixth, look for your Latte Factor, the small daily expenses that add up to significant amounts over time. You don't have to eliminate all small pleasures, but be conscious about where your money is going and redirect spending from things you don't value to building wealth. Seventh, start now, regardless of your current financial situation. The power of compound interest means that starting early with small amounts is more powerful than waiting until you can invest a larger amount later. And finally, trust the process and stay the course. The Automatic Millionaire system works, but it requires patience and consistency. Don't let market volatility or economic uncertainty derail your long-term wealth-building plan. The beautiful thing about Bach's system is that it's not about deprivation or living an uncomfortable life. It's about making one decision to automate your finances and then letting the system work in the background while you live your life. Whether you're drowning in debt,
living paycheck to paycheck, or already have some savings, the Automatic Millionaire system can work for you. The key is to start with whatever amount you can afford and gradually increase your automatic savings as your income grows. Remember, becoming an automatic millionaire isn't about making huge sacrifices or becoming a financial expert. It's about making wealth building automatic so that you build wealth while you sleep, while you work, while you're living your life. The system does the work for you, and time does the rest. So take action today. Set up one automatic transfer from your checking account to a savings account. It could be $25, $50, or whatever amount you can afford. The amount doesn't matter as much as starting the process and making it automatic. Your future self will thank you for taking this step, and you'll be amazed at how much wealth you can build by simply automating the process. The path to becoming an automatic millionaire starts with one decision, and today is the perfect day to make that decision. Remember, you don't have to be rich to get started, but you have to get started to be rich. The Automatic Millionaire system is your roadmap to financial freedom, and it all begins with one simple decision to pay yourself first, automatically. What are you waiting for?